So inbound marketing is a marketing philosophy, isn't it really?
On two discussions about MQL, SQL, so for listeners, marketing qualified lead, sales qualified lead.
And then we have things like other lead magnets that might be something like a scorecard.
Use the fact that software systems these days can score and help you go through that MQL.
So I think the other thing that's worth talking about with inbound as well is around content and around content strategy.
I went to an event this morning and I went to introduce myself. I said, "Hello, I'm Dave." And he said, "I know. Seen you on the podcast." I thought, my goodness, it's like being on telly.
Famous.
Get recognised, yeah. That must have happened to you as well, right?
Happened to me before the podcast, actually.
Because you're that famous.
That famous.
Right.
No, it is an odd thing when that happens, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
The reach is
Get used
spreading.
to it. But another inquiry for sponsoring the podcast as well. We're staying unsponsored for the moment, though.
Yeah,
Where we
true to the
about. Yeah, exactly.
true to the grassroots for now.
Exactly.
Not
People
quite.
keep saying we should charge for premium membership and release early content and all that sort of things. So all these
Well,
listeners
maybe
coming
one
in at the
day.
moment for free. Yeah, so you don't
Maybe
know how
one
good
day.
it is.
Maybe one day.
Anyway.
Get in early. Become a founder member of the SME Growth Podcast.
Ah, right.
Start
I think we
the
should do an
movement.
early bird.
Well,
thing.
without giving any spoilers away, we're chatting to a kindred spirit this week, weren't we?
Mhm.
And just a bit of a movement around SMEs. I do think there's something
Yeah.
in that. I think there's a lot of
Is there a
effort.
passion for SMEs? There's
Well,
a
I
lot of
think
them for a start.
there's a
They're
lot of them.
underserved, I think.
Underserved. I think a lot of people put a lot of effort into their businesses, and that's
Yeah.
not just the owners, that's people that work in SMEs as well. You're often juggling a couple of different hats. And I think, often overlooked. I know there's, already institutions out there that wave the flag for SMEs,
They do.
but maybe we could be the poster boys,
We could be the podcast that champions that.
the little and large
Yeah.
of the podcast.
Well, I've got to say, this event I was talking about, meeting lots of big corporates and SMEs, and when we got on to talking about AI, which wasn't what the whole thing was about, but a question was asked, it struck me as how lucky we are in a smaller business where we're able to be so much more agile and pick up these things and just get on with it.
Yeah.
The big firms are more worried about educating everybody about what not to do and not giving everybody licenses and locking it all down. And they're months, if not soon to be years behind, really, because SMEs are just getting on with it.
Yep.
And it's a way, I suppose, that we can outplay our size, kind of punch above our weight.
Guerrilla warfare
Yeah.
in the
Well, if there really is that first $1 billion company with 10 employees or whatever it is, I can't remember who was that said that.
Sam Altman.
It was Sam
$1
Altman.
billion dollar company with one person.
One employee. Wow, yeah. If that's on its way, you don't need a big corporate to spawn it, right? That's almost the first sign that it won't happen.
No, and I saw someone on LinkedIn this week saying instead of hiring someone, they've got a $200 ChatGPT subscription, and now they've got their head of strategy or whatever is the ChatGPT.
Yeah.
You plug it into all this knowledge, some of it coming from the SME Growth Podcast.
You mean they've taken transcripts of all our shows and that's their knowledge base? Heck, that's a good idea. We should do that.
We should do that.
Yeah.
For
Well,
premium.
another guy there said he had 26 AI agents running, each of which could have been an employee in the old days. So he said he's got 30 people in his organisation and it behaves like they've got 90. Well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's not what we sat down to talk about today, is it?
No.
So
Should we get on with it?
should we get on with it? Okay. Hello and welcome to another episode of the SME Growth Podcast from Wellmeadow. We're up to episode 139.
Wow.
Maybe next week we should do a little bit of a sort of a mini decade birthday celebration or something, up to 140.
Easy darts finish, isn't it? 140.
Yeah. We
Save it for next week.
139 is probably a bit more challenging, but anyway, I'll leave you to do that. I think we might run out of road on the darts finish theme. We'll have to get up to 160, whatever it is, before they stop becoming that easy. So what we're talking about this week then, in episode 139, people have probably read it on their podcast listing anyway, but what are we doing?
Well, the famous Wellmeadow 6-box model,
The 6-box model,
which has 6 boxes in it.
previewed last week in the episode called How to Build a Growth Engine, where we talked about it.
We're deep diving.
Deep dive. Hold
And
your
we're-
breath.
We're deep diving on inbound marketing.
How long can you hold your breath for?
Couple of
Can you
minutes.
manage half an hour? That'll give me a free run then without you interrupting
Yeah, exactly.
while you're trying.
I could just leave. It'd be easier, wouldn't it?
We'll just turn that camera off. No one will ever know. So we're
yeah,
going to deep dive.
on
Yeah.
inbound marketing.
So just quickly, last week then, episode 138 was how to build a growth engine. A week before that was 137, getting back to work, celebrating the fact that September's a great start point,
Reset,
alternative start point of the year. And prior to that, 136 was with Lee Russell, with some really practical advice on how to start your AI journey, even in SMEs, as we talked about just in the intro there. Good. So 139 then, we're going to deep dive. Where do you want to start in our deep dive on the growth engine? Should we start with box one?
Box one, inbound marketing.
Just to be conventional, shall we? So you remember last week we described a little bit, didn't we? We painted this picture in the air with words. I wonder how effective that was. And we tried to get people to imagine the layout of this 6-box model. But there were 3 boxes on the left, all to do with bringing people into the ecosystem. Inbound, outbound, and referrals. So today we thought we'd talk about the first of those, inbound.
Inbound.
What's that all about then?
We're not going to talk about phishing either.
No, that got a bit of response. I think the bit where we started eating our customers was where we
that's where we
decided the metaphor had run out of steam.
So inbound marketing is a marketing philosophy, isn't it really, that talks about bringing customers into your ecosystem by often offering them something of value in return for
this is where the phishing thing came from. It was the bait, wasn't it?
It was the bait.
You put the stuff out there and they come to you.
Yeah.
And there was that great, what was the book that Marcus Sheridan wrote? It was all around this, wasn't it?
They ask, you answer.
You answer, that was it.
Yeah.
And the whole mantra was, if you're good at inbound, you don't have to worry about selling anymore because your customers will beat a path to your door.
And I think it is, in the past, been almost the sort of holy grail. If you get this right, if you get your SEO right, if you get your landing pages right, you get your content right, customers will just come flocking to you.
Yeah, brilliant.
And whilst I still think that is true, and I still think inbound there's a lot to offer, I think the days of it being something where it was that easy are probably over. There's a lot.
In his time when he wrote that book, it worked a lot easier.
Yeah, and I think sometimes with these books, they're written probably 10 years after.
Hey, Marcus, if you're listening, we still love you, mate. It was a great book.
A great book.
And there's lots of learning.
But I think it's just those things, isn't it? If you go through a phase where you do something, you then write a book about it 10 years after because you've got the knowledge to write the book. But maybe by the time the book comes out, things have moved on. But the principles remain the same. However, I think what's changed is that we've all got a lot more access to information, and particularly with AI, a lot of that top of funnel space.
You mentioned that phrase last week. I wondered if that might be worth just repeating and sort of expanding on what you meant by that. You said AI had killed top of funnel. What did you mean by that? I know what you mean by that. I mean for our listeners.
I just read it somewhere. No, so imagine like top of funnel is where you're talking about how you attract people into your funnel. I don't like the word funnel. Sphere of influence is probably a better.
Yeah.
People become aware of you. They're at the start of their journey, shall we say? That's probably a better start of journey. SOJ. So whereas traditionally you would be educating a lot on, people would be in that awareness phase of, who are Wellmeadow, what are they all about type of thing, what services do they offer, and we might produce some kind of ebook or something that explains how to do that. A lot of that information now is much more digestible. I think when people first started doing that, there wasn't so many people on the internet, etc. I mean, you're going back away. So if you had a really good piece of content, you could really stand out. Everyone then starts doing that, it becomes more crowded. You've then got things like YouTube, which are starting to give you more video digest of those sorts of things. But now with AI, you can get really good responses educationally around, if I wanted to know about inbound marketing, I would say, tell me about inbound marketing on AI, and it would give me a really good...
Without referring to a website or somebody's... I think a good example of that would be our most downloaded asset is the Good Board Meeting Guide. Yeah. As people who know us very well know, we chair a lot of board meetings. We've done over 3,000 of them and all of that. So we wrote a book on it. So there's a book out there downloadable on our website called exactly that, the Good Board Meeting Guide. And I think that still comes up very high if you search for board meeting agenda or how to run a board meeting and all those sorts of phrases. But if you do it now, you're as likely under the Gemini bit at the top of the Google results just to get the board meeting agenda rather than referring to our website where you can download our book on it. Yeah. And that's your point, I think, that what used to be a very good top of funnel entry into our ecosystem, lead generator, if you like, you may not get that far anymore unless you scroll down to the natural search stuff. Yeah. You're just going to get the answer you want straight away without knowing that it's probably been trained on our book.
And so I think when it comes to inbound, so if we talk about inbound of being people, the clue's in the word, isn't it? They're inbound into your website. That's the destination, as it were. When people are now landing on your website, I think there's a bit of a rethink about what you do with the website. It now has to you almost have to assume they've done that awareness piece and they're actually coming through into a kind of consideration. Like, okay, we've got if you take the board meeting example, okay, someone's aware that they've got a problem with governance, or maybe they're growing and they're growing too quickly and they need to think about, okay, we need more structure in the business or need more whatever. They've already gone through that awareness piece. Now they're looking at consideration. So what are the options? Well, you could train yourself to learn it. You could get someone else in. You could ignore the problem and just hope it goes away. You know, they're the options you're considering. And then you're into that decision phase of, well, okay, now I've considered my options and thought, well, okay, I want someone to come and help me. Who's that going to be? So you're deciding amongst a couple of people. Maybe.
Yeah, you've whittled it down to the last few candidate.
So then you're into things like testimonials and, you know, maybe return on investment calculator or whatever it is, social proof type stuff. So I think the website now, when it's probably, whereas inbound was traditionally seen as more of a marketing's area, I think there's probably now a lot more bleed into sales getting involved.
It's the early bit of sales, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I guess that brings us on to discussions about MQL, SQL. So for listeners, marketing qualified lead, sales qualified lead.
Yeah.
Before that, you've just got lead. And before that, you may have subscriber, as HubSpot calls it in its language, but it's kind of a pre-lead thing, not really of interest yet. So what we're talking about here is building a system out which is supported by your CRM, which at least acknowledges the fact that when people come onto the website and identify themselves, clearly there's no point, you know, if they're just there anonymously, then there's nothing you can do about them. Although there is a bit around the buyer intent functionality, which is a bit like lead forensics. It'll tell you the company has been on your site. But anyway, let's say you have some way you've attracted somebody sufficiently that through a lead magnet, hopefully a bit more than just a contact form, but something, they've made themselves known. At that point, they become a lead and no more. Yeah, that's just it. You've got to make sure your system then is good enough to flag up that they're a lead, and wherever possible, flag up where they come from. And it still amazes me that quite established companies aren't using the UTM source, question mark UTM source thing at the end of their URL links, so that everywhere that they have control over that's backlinking to their website, they should be at least identifying that source so that when it comes in, you can look at that property against the contact. And they don't do it. So at the very least, do that. They come in and then, so they're just a lead. The next step is MQL. And you've got to work out how do you marketing qualify a lead. So what are the steps that we go through to try and take somebody from just coming on the website once?
So I think so there's some nuances in this, I think. Oftentimes when what you see is someone comes in and fills a form in as a lead, and that's treated almost straight away as this is somebody who wants to buy something.
Yeah, and that's not the case.
Often
that's how to frighten people off very quickly.
Yeah. Too much too soon. And so I'd say the exception from that would be if you've got like a contact form or something like that, then you probably want to respond to those inquiries because that's somebody who's actually saying contact me, right?
That's like ringing you up, right? You're not going to not answer the phone. Yeah.
So I think then when you're talking about moving from a lead to an MQL, so for example, someone downloads our Good Board Meeting Guide.
Yep.
We would class them as a lead.
Just a lead.
Because what we tend to find, and maybe some people are listening who've downloaded it, is that 90% of the people that download that asset are probably other consultants.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe not quite 90%, but you get.
We've certainly had a few that like the idea of that, and indeed students and so on, people wanted information.
That's fine. Like there's.
Would you go as far? We haven't done this. Would you go as far as putting next to the form? Don't worry, we won't call you if you fill this in, because we don't call them if they fill in, right? We don't take that as a buy signal. We just say that someone is prepared to pay for some information with the price of their email address. Yeah,
I mean, we do have a drip campaign off the back of it. So if you don't go and download any of our assets,
that's not selling to them, is it? That's giving them more information.
Giving more information, more value, and you're actually stepping them through that process.
If you're
and
interested
giving
in
them
this, you might be interested in that.
Yeah. But what we would do to see, so we've got the drip campaign there that we would say you downloaded the ebook, you've got that, you've opened it. We use HubSpot to lead score. So maybe by doing that, you get 10 points. For example, I can't remember what they exactly are, but let's say it's 10 points. Let's say then you open all of the subsequent drip emails and you click on some links and you do some other content.
Yeah, because we offer them downloads, don't we?
Yeah,
Would you like a template risk register, for example, or download the agenda template?
So by downloading and interacting with that content, you're scoring more points.
Yeah.
And then we have things like other lead magnets that might be something like a scorecard. So would you like to evaluate your business six box model for your business or whatever.
Yeah.
Interacting with that again would be scoring more points.
Mm-hmm.
Now, from that, not only are we profiling that particular user because we're getting more information about them and at the same time offering more value, hopefully.
Yep.
We're also building up those scores internally in HubSpot. So let's say now they've scored because of the way they've interacted with the content, they've got 30 points. And maybe at 30 points, we would trigger that to say, right, this is more than just someone who's kind of come and grabbed some content and left.
Yep.
They're actually engaging with our content. They're looking at, different things, and we can see that they're serious about solving a problem.
And different things as well. They're not just repeatedly opened the same email because it was on the preview pane or something. They've looked at other stuff from the drip campaign, or maybe they just thought, what was that thing the other day I looked at, and then have a wander around the website.
And what we try and do, so we've got like webinar campaigns, we've got scorecard campaigns, we've got ebook campaigns, so we've got a couple of different inbound ways of capturing people's attention and capturing their email addresses. By cross-fertilizing those campaigns, which once you've got them set up, it's very easy to do, you are able to kind of give people a really natural way of interacting with your content without ramming it down their throats.
Yeah.
So, but all the while in the background, HubSpot's tracking all this and clocking up the points.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got automations that say, right, this person's been on the website, let's call him John. John's been on the website, and he's now scored 30 points. So that will trigger what we call MQL question mark.
Yes.
Because at that point, which is a recent addition to the Wellmeadow lifecycle, MQL question mark is, we think that John is potentially interested in our services. He's not just come and gone. He's looking around and engaging with some stuff. And this may be over the course of a couple of weeks, but it's all happened in the background. So we haven't got to worry too much about this until we get that automation that says, there you go. At that point then, one of us would probably start a sales outreach to John to say, looks like you're interested in the content. Should we have a chat?
Yep.
At which point we're going to start to make an assessment as to whether he's SQL or not.
So SQL sales qualified lead, that's where you have to speak to or you have to do some research on someone. So you want to know that the company that they represent, work with, is in our target list, if you like, our ideal customer profile. Are they the sort of company that we're likely to sell to? So if it's, a charity, public sector, maybe less likely because most of our businesses are B2B companies in the private sector, owned companies, and generally speaking in Europe and predominantly the UK, but not exclusively, but predominantly. So you'd want to check that. Then you want to also check their role within that company. Does it look like they're the right sort of person with the right sort of decision-making power and likely to have the right job where what we do would be useful? So that's what makes them an SQL if they answer those questions. You may not still have spoken to them. You may have been able to do that research on LinkedIn or looking at their websites or whatever. You might have spoken to them, might have met them in person at an exhibition or something. But the point is then you've made them an SQL and you treat them differently. Because at SQL level, you can then say, have you got a project at the moment?
Yeah.
If they have, great. That means they're now an opportunity. They go into your pipeline and you carry on. They may not have, but they're still an SQL. But that means you nurture them according to them being an SQL. Because you know that at some point, all you're doing then is waiting for the right timing. Yeah. But they've got a need that you can provide, just not now. If they stay at MQL, that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. They move from MQL question mark to MQL definitely. They're just they're someone who has satisfied your requirements through the automation scoring to be worthy of attention. You've done a bit more research. They're not an SQL. So the point is they graduate from being MQL question mark to MQL purely and simply. That means they're definite. So then you carry on nurturing them, but you're nurturing them for a different reason. You're not waiting for timing at that point. You might be waiting for them to tell a colleague about it who is an SQL or bump into somebody in the pub. So that's more of an education thing for them about what we do, knowing that you're never probably going to sell to that person whilst they're in their current role. Whereas an SQL outreach will be different. So it's important that you use this whole box one automation, the scoring, and then what happens when they become MQL question mark and so on, because that will come back to be useful in box 4, which is the nurture bit. How do you nurture them differently?
Yeah. So I think the other thing that's worth talking about with inbound as well is around content and around content strategy and around thinking through, and even before that, who's your buyer persona or ideal customer profile, ICP. Probably need to look up the episode on this, but we have done deep dive episodes on buyer personas and buyer journeys before.
Did, way back when.
I think they're early episodes, probably single digit stuff. So if you're interested, go and have a look at those. But I would say that's before you get too carried away with writing ebooks, and I wouldn't probably really recommend ebooks anymore anyway, because there's so much information around. But if you've already got the content, it's easy to do.
Well, you want something downloadable.
You've got to have
worthwhile,
something
right?
that you give away that's good enough value. I think, if I'm honest, with B2B nowadays, a lot of people have got a lot of access to information with ChatGPT and Copilot and whatever, so they're able to get a lot of what you would put in an ebook probably anyway.
Yeah, sure.
I think.
So what sort of things then would be worth giving you?
So I think it's worth looking at, okay, who are your buyer personas to start with, so that you can start to think about what sort of things would they be interested in terms of content. So things that we're using a lot at the moment are around scorecards, where you can ask people 10 questions, 20 questions, whatever.
This is using the app called Score App.
Score App, yeah. The nice thing about that is, my working hypothesis at the moment is that if you actually put some of your data into something, you are invested. You're also getting from the kind of our side of it, we're getting a lot more information back in terms of where the pain points are. And so you're learning a lot from that. Yeah,
and the output you get is tailored, right? That's the point of putting your
information. Yeah, you get is tailored. So you're getting that. You're almost getting self-segmentation as you go through that.
So you're sort of giving somebody an ebook that has all the stuff that doesn't relate to them stripped out, and what's left is what should relate absolutely to them. Yeah,
so I think some of them, if your listeners can go on our website and have a look at them. They've got loads around the 6-box model. If you go on and find the 6-box model page, there's loads of score apps on there. They will just give you results straight away with recommendations, but you can turn that into a quasi ebook as well, where you actually send out a PDF and it's got all the information in it. So you're almost combining the self-diagnostic tool with an ebook together. They're quite good. I would then say we've got other inboundy things around webinars, on-demand webinars. So webinars that we've done in the past, repurpose those. And again, that's another kind of inbound type of approach where people are putting their email.
I saw the other day, I was looking at our buyer intent page, which is, like I said earlier, the lead forensics thing, which companies have been on your page. And you see one and think, they're quite interesting. I wonder which page they looked at. And it was the webinar one. They didn't actually sign up or download the webinar again, but they were interested in it. So you want to sort of follow. You can make that a target company then, can't you? Go into LinkedIn, find the key people, add them in, do a bit of outreach, whatever you want.
And so the idea then is that you're putting all of this content behind some kind of what they call a gate, which could be a form. And then you're exchanging that email address for access to that content. Now, I would say not all inbound necessarily has to be gated. You don't really, so things like case studies you could use as inbound.
That's almost salesy. You wouldn't want to gate that necessarily.
Kind of,
give that away for free, really.
But anything like a playbook or something I've seen recently that I think we'll probably adopt is a, sign up for 10 emails every day into your inbox about subject X.
Well, like micro learning stuff.
Yeah, and it's just given into
your
inbox.
About your price lists? What's your theory on that, whether that's a gated thing to put on your website or whether you...
Well, I think there's a theory now. I think a lot of people are using ChatGPT to do procurement work, early stage. I think people will probably say, right, find me a HubSpot agency that can do X, Y, Z in this area, this specialty, price range between X and Y, hourly rate. If you haven't got that information on your website, ChatGPT isn't going to return you ignore you.
So you couldn't afford to put that behind a gate then, could you? You've got to make that publicly available, at least in terms of a guide that ChatGPT could use. Yeah.
So I think, those kind of things are going to become more and more, you're going to have to be more transparent with that.
So you need to have something that people are prepared to exchange their email for. We've talked about score apps, maybe ebooks, maybe not, or at least something. Maybe something that's of value straight away, a template that you've designed which isn't just readily available, that incorporates some sort of IP or something like that. So you get them to fill in that form. Now, we talked before about progressive forms. Yeah. Because at the early stage, you don't want to frighten people off by asking for too much information on a form. So pretty much first name, last name, email, maybe about as far as you'd go. You might add on company name perhaps, but quite often if it's a company email address, you can determine that anyway. So you stick it simple. The idea, I think, with your scoring system is that if you can encourage people to come back and download different assets because of your drip campaign, making them aware of it, then your form could be set up to automatically ask another question the second time it's visited. And maybe hide the questions that you already know the answers for. So it doesn't make the form look very big, but actually over time you've collected lots of different information. So then if you're clever, you can get the user to self-identify in terms of buyer persona, stage of the buyer journey, maybe their industry segment, maybe their decision-making power, that type of thing. And then that would help inform you not only on your MQL, because they've done some activity, but also on your SQL.
Yeah.
So even if they're not on LinkedIn or you can't tell from LinkedIn what their role is, you could have been able to determine that, yes, they're in a company with 100 employees or X turnover, and they've got decision-making power, or they've got a problem they want to solve, or whatever. And
you can start to, if you again, like the content strategy, the type of content you've got, you could start to infer some of those things from what people are actually clicking on in terms of where are they at in the buyer journey. Is it the ROI calculator that's really got them, or the 10 things you should be aware of when you're thinking about choosing a CRM.
And if you're clever, you can do that with your drip campaign as well.
Yeah.
So if afterwards you send 2 or 3 very different types of things that would single them out as being either interested in actually doing a project or just learning about it, then you could categorize them like that too.
Well, I think, you could put 2 or 3 different links into your drip campaign emails. So the drip campaign would just be you've downloaded an asset over the next 14, 30 days, whatever time period, we're going to just drip out some more useful content to you.
Yeah, sure.
But within that, you could break down that content into sort of awareness, consideration, decision style content.
Yeah, the buyer journey.
And by people clicking on those or interacting with that content, you could start to get a little bit of a feel for, what stage of the journey are they at?
Yeah. Now, what's quite interesting to me, because we have this weird combination of being inside board meetings and therefore seeing the inner workings of lots of different companies and also knowing all this HubSpot-y stuff, it's interesting to see which types of companies are really relying on inbound. Where is it a major component of their lead generation activities? And where isn't it? Where is it being done still? Because, you've got to, haven't you, in inverted commas, but it's actually not really generating that many leads. And I'm interested, even just from our own perspective, we do all this stuff. You just described it all, right?
Yeah.
We've got all this going on, and we have had for years. But if you look at how many leads we get into our business, for example, from inbound, whilst it's worth doing, and if this content is evergreen, once you've done it, and it sits there, it's not the sort of route that people generally take when they're trying to find people like us. They're not necessarily doing a Google search and trusting the results and going to a website and so on. It's usually done after they found out about us through some other means. Maybe they've listened to the podcast, or they've seen someone else mention it, or whatever it may be. So it's interesting when you go around the different clients that you and I know, for some of them, inbound is absolutely the way they get loads of leads, right? It's because people are searching, not knowing who's out there, and they're finding them. But for others not. So I think it's probably just worth encouraging people to think twice and be honest with yourself. Do you need to put as much investment in this inbound area compared to the other boxes that we'll come to and that we described last week? The outbound, managing referral, nurture flows, or other things that you can do. And I don't think it's universally true that everybody needs to invest the same proportion of their spend, if you like, on this.
Yeah, I think if you're going to do inbound, you need to be really strategic about it, because it's a slow burner compared to other ways of doing things.
Yeah,
it has to work for your market as well. And also you probably need to make sure it's really coordinated, and you have to have that really good way of getting people to come to your website. So what's your social posting looking like? Yeah. And a lot of B2B social posting isn't great, really. You've really got to be brand. I think if you're really going to do it well, you've really got to think about your brand. I heard someone say the other day that company, if you've got your branding and if you've got your branding down, you don't need to do sales. Which I think, probably a whole other podcast on that. And there's some element to that. No one buys Nike because they have done the research on whether that particular shoe is whatever.
Yeah. How many grams is it? And
no
nitrogen-filled sole.
You buy into the brand, don't you? Or you buy into the whatever. So it's kind of, that's all well and good. I think, branding, B2B, all that kind of thing. It's it's probably a whole other subject.
Yeah, right? You're getting into specialist fields there, aren't you?
So I think inbound, you've got to make sure you're consistent with it. It's a slow burner often for B2B. And also I think there is a danger because of that. What tends to happen is that people keep just chucking campaigns out all the time.
Yeah.
So it ends up with a real kind of mess of all loads of abandoned campaigns and all that. I would say pick 2 or 3 things that really you think can work and just work to optimize and dial them in to see, and then you can start to use in your outbound campaigns, you can start to use those inbound tools that you've built to start to get more engagement for your outbound.
Yeah, you can still refer people
things.
to them through your outbound campaigns.
Yeah.
You're right. But the idea of an inbound campaign is that it works on its own, right? It's that bait dangling on the end of the line, going back to our fishing rod thing, and people just come to it. But there's no point you could have the best lead magnet in terms of quality of asset in the world, but if no one's visiting your website, then there's absolutely no point at all.
Yeah.
And this is where I think there's a big fear about what's happening with SEO now. How do you get rankings? And even if you were highly ranked, does it matter? The natural search results on Google are now below the fold. You've got the Gemini results at the top, which as soon as you expand fills the whole of the first screen. Then you've got the sponsored listings. Then you've got natural search. And unless you're in the top, 1, 2, 3, let alone what we used to call first page, top 10, you're not going to be found at all.
Well, you can get into a whole load of things about personal brand, which is, I guess arguably sort of what this podcast is doing. That is becoming, that's why business owners are doing personal branding, are doing those sorts of things, so that's what gets you out there.
Well, your mate talked about that on the guest. He came on to talk about the LinkedIn branding, didn't he? That was about personal branding, making sure your LinkedIn is effectively the advert for you, and it's so universally available. Everyone looks at it, and yet it's very poorly done in most cases.
But even content around like podcast, or it doesn't have to necessarily be a podcast. It could just be your thoughts around things. But
you might have written a paper on something, or been quoted in a magazine article or an interview. Yeah, exactly.
But driving that in a smaller company where effectively what you're buying is maybe not the owners, but it could be people.
Yeah.
Then that branding piece is pretty big on that, and that's almost a quasi inboundy type of we're coming to you because of who you are.
Yeah, but I don't think that happens just because you've got a profile on your website.
No, that's a lot of work to do that.
Or a link from your LinkedIn page. I think you have to do lots of other offline things and do a bit of outbound and a bit of referral stuff, the next 2 boxes.
And again, it takes time.
And it does take time.
It's slow burn, consistency, discipline, that type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So a good whirlwind tour there of box 1 of our 6-box model, inbound. So this is the all the efforts you do, all coordinated into campaigns, but to try and make people come to you and declare themselves. And there's a couple of golden rules in there. Certainly have some lead magnets that are high quality and represent you and your personal brand, but also don't sell to people as soon as they come on. The point of someone filling in a form with their email address doesn't mean they're inviting you to pick up the phone and ram some product down their throat that they don't want. Use the fact that software systems these days can score and help you go through that MQL as opposed to, with the question mark, as opposed to MQL. You definitely decided they're not SQL, so they're MQL, and then nurture them differently and go down. So the ultimate goal of this is that you have some leads coming out of this process that are SQL and they're ready to buy. Okay, now we can sell to them.
Yep.
But the rest, they need dealing with differently. Fair summary?
Fair summary.
Right. So tune in next week for box 2.
Box 2, mystery box. It's like the advent calendar of...
we should have done this in December.
The advent calendar of
God, if only we had
growth.
A 24-box model to explain the sales process. We could then
just do it. We've got 6s. We could just do 4, couldn't we?
We could just do 4 of each of the 6. We could do 4 aspects of each of this, and that's the advent calendar with a little chocolate behind each one.
Exactly.
Yeah, so now I've taken you off the idea of the Women's Institute calendar with a picture on every month.
I think we could combine the 2, actually.
No, you can't. Advent calendars aren't the same as calendars. Happened before the year's ended.
You could have a picture when you open the door, couldn't you? And a chocolate.
I think you're overselling. I think a chocolate.
I'm giving away too much there.
You're giving away too much.
That's too much inbound.
Way too much. Yeah.
Out of bounds. Out of bounds.
Yeah, you're off the scale. Eh? Good. Thank you very much again for persevering through another episode of the SME Growth Podcast from Wellmeadow. Thanks for all your comments and feedback. It's great to hear so many people are getting some value from various bits of what we're trying to share with you. Please tell your friends about it, as we always ask you to do. Drop a comment. Let us know what you think about what we've talked about today. And in the meantime, good luck with your business.